Hey everyone, welcome to the All American Dad podcast. I'm your host James, and I'm here with another awesome guest, someone who I go back with, as well as my wife and I. We both go back with this family in ways they are near and dear to our hearts. Only gotten to know my next guest a lot. I mean, a much deeper level the past couple of years, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. Well, we get to go deeper now, which you can do with anybody that you want to get to know on a deeper level just by asking the question, very simple question. So, what's your story? So we're going to put that in action here as I get to know my next guest, Elijah Gibson.
Hey,
welcome
James.
to the podcast.
Thanks for the invite. Happy to be here.
Appreciate you penciling me in.
Always.
You
Pretty
know.
flexible.
He answered the call.
Uh,
But yeah, the premise of this show, I want to build awareness that it's amazing to get to know people on a deeper level, whether it's someone you just met, someone you click with, whether it's someone you might disagree with, or someone you've known since, 2003? Back when I was taller than you?
Yep, you were taller than me at one point. To be fair, I had more hair than you at one point, though.
I'm catching up. This hairline's running away fast.
See, mine was happening at two angles, so I just said bye.
But you own it. I'm growing the manly beard back in. It's just taking a little bit, but it'll happen. But more importantly, I want to ask you the question, and we're going to dig into it throughout the podcast, but I want to know what your story is. Let's start from the beginning.
All right.
What was childhood like for Elijah in the Gibson household?
Childhood was pretty straightforward for me. Originally from Ware, New Hampshire. I can feel you resisting the urge to tell the joke. But yes, we all know where Ware is. All right.
I might say that one for a mini Monday. Might have to work it in.
I guess it's the northern equivalent of pseudo country family. You know, dirt road. Went to the lake on a regular basis. Hung out in the woods. Was homeschooled.
Okay.
Never really had a desire to go to public school, other than when I took driver's ed. That was about it.
So you're homeschooled start to finish?
Yep.
So I had started private school, then I went to public school. Definite culture shock.
You can imagine.
And then homeschooled. So I got to experience it all.
Yeah. No, I was given the option at high school if I wanted to go into public school. Did not want to.
Because your brother went to
Yeah.
high school.
Brother and older sister. They both.
So they
went to
both went. Yeah.
high school. I grew up in the church. Been going to church since I was 2 years old. 96. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I also grew up in the church. Some of my earliest memories are at a church that I couldn't even tell you the name of it, but I can see it in my head. And I also know I harassed their drummer probably 19 times to teach me. So if you can imagine a 4-year-old, like, teach me something, teach me. Every Sunday, I'd go right up there once it was over, and I'd ask for my drum lesson, and it paid off over the years.
Yeah, I've heard you play drums a few times.
Once or twice.
Just once or twice. Let's see. Yeah. I mean,
What's so you're, 6 to preteen? What's some of the dreams you had as a kid? Like, when I grow up, I want to X, Y, and Z. Whether it's the absurd ones like I had, I want to be a rock star or a wrestler, or I want to be a cop, I want to be this. What was
As a little kid, I mean, I feel like my dreams went all over the place. Wanted to, be an astronaut at one point. That lasted a season.
Yep.
Things probably tapered out around 10-ish, where I really became more mechanically inclined, got into computers, liked, tearing stuff apart, putting it back together.
okay? Yeah.
So really kind of built a passion for like engineering, mechanics, and stuff like that. I think I built my first computer at 13.
I mean, I know I always had this desire, like, okay, when I put this tape, that's how old I am, when I put this VHS tape in this ancient piece of technology called a VCR, a picture comes up on the television screen. But why? I always had that. Now I want to know why that works. Like, what makes things up? Always had a fascination with those things. Was that kind of the thing, or was it more the fact like being able to like build it and do it?
It was more the build it and do it. like seeing pieces of hardware and wanting to learn how that ticks, and really just the disassembly, reassembly. You know, built all kinds of like gadgets and whatnot wherever I could. I think I had all kinds of like makeshift toys that I had like disassembled other toys and put those toys back together and formed other things. As a kid, I definitely remember doing that a lot. Was big into the more model-esque action figures, the stuff that I could shift around, make something new out of.
Like the ones you would build, or
kind of, sort of, yeah.
Okay,
or the action figures that would have like a ton of disassemblable parts that you could mix and match and do other things like that. Because I liked figuring out how things ticked, or different ways the same things could fit together. You know, always looked at everything almost like a puzzle. Was very good at Tetris.
Hey.
Was very good at Tetris. Whenever someone in the family moves, like I'm in charge of packing it in, basically.
Video games do teach you skills. Change my mind.
The pantry rearranged, like I am the guy. I have not had a rack of cans disappear on me yet because I straightened them out. But you know, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen to me. I guess. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. I mean, I really didn't have like an overly exciting, you know, thing. I mean, probably the most profound memories, good or bad, are between 05 and 09. You know, the stuff that happened with my siblings, but I mean, that's their story to tell, so I won't go into that.
Yeah.
My parents had, you know, we had a house repossessed, so we had left where we ended up moving to Merrimack. You know, by the grace of God, somebody who had an extra house essentially in their possession just rented it out to us like the day we were supposed to leave our house. Like that was crazy how that worked out. That was all God. You know, and that kind of begun a journey of kind of discovery for, I don't know, I think my whole family, realistically, good or bad. We just kind of kicked it off. But that's kind of also the beginning of me more coming into myself in a sense, rather than just being, you know, another kid.
Yeah.
You know, as far as the homeschooling, started taking up, you know, helping with the homeschooling of my younger sister. Wow. As well as myself whenever my mom needed me to do so.
You see the seeds of fatherhood planted at an early age, huh?
Yeah, in a sense, like
I mean, definitely in a sense.
You can look at it that way.
I do. I really do.
You know, and then after that, you know, I was helping out. My sister had her first son, or her son. You know, I helped her whenever possible as a young teenager. So I mean, definitely. I mean, from a young age. I mean, in the topic of dreams, one thing I always knew I was going to have kids. I always knew I was going to be a father.
Yeah. Well, you guys are such a tight knit family. You know. True. So it's like families like that's.
We take the term clan seriously.
Yeah. No, it's like it's a fun.
Right to its Irish roots.
Correct. No, it's like. So like, yeah, you not having a family, like, it's gonna happen.
So yeah, I mean, I helped out with my sister a lot. Helped out with my nephew a lot.
Yep. Which it's been fun to see him the past few years just blossom.
He's almost as tall as me, and I only got like 30 pounds on him.
Yeah,
big boy.
Good thing he's got a heart of gold.
Yeah, right.
Good thing he likes people.
He's very social. And that, so I was about 16. So I got my first job. Worked at Panera in Bedford. That was a trip. That was a culture shock. See, for public school being your culture shock, getting into the workforce was my culture shock.
Yeah.
Because I had no experience outside of the church I grew up in and my house.
Yeah.
That was it. So then going into, at the time, what was the busiest and highest profit store in the New England Panera district.
That's one way to start.
Yeah. Got a crash course in customer service and how to actually interact with people in the real world.
Yeah.
But it was fun. It was a learning experience. You know, I got the taste of real world in a sense. Learn how to work around and with people. How to communicate more than just the, you know, occasional comments. Because I mean, I was also like the quiet kid in my house. I mean, you primarily grew up alongside my brother. Like,
Yeah,
so
more.
you guys were close.
Yeah.
I think the most interaction we had when I was a kid was maybe me playing Smash Brothers with you and him. And, for the first time in my entire childhood, I beat him only for you to come out of left field and just wipe me off the game.
I was good at that. It's like, we don't have to worry about James. He's probably already off the mat. Yeah. And just like let everybody else fight. And I come in and cheap shot. I win.
Relish in that victory for all of like 0.2 seconds. And then there go my slots. I'm gone.
But you took him out. So that's no simple task because that guy knows he knows the ways around Link.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, that was a good time. I think that was the most interaction we had outside of like Taekwondo. I forget about that. We were all big into Taekwondo back in the day. And then you as a youth group leader, I mean, I still actually, I don't know if I showed you this. You had me in a hold, and one wrist still can bend further than the other.
What?
Yeah, you did that.
I did?
It was after a game of TP rugby.
Yep. Okay.
We had like this like pseudo Taekwondo wrestling match where I think it was me, Christian, you.
Were we going for tap out?
Yes.
Okay.
And you discovered that I'm like triple jointed in my wrist.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
You're like, wow, I remember this. You're like, because you look at me like I'm a more like, an armbar doesn't work. I'm double jointed. I'm like, oh, okay. Let me go to the one other submission I know, which is more just joint manipulation, but I cranked it. And I don't even know if you tapped or not.
Out of pure stubbornness, I was refusing. You did get me to tap, but to this day, one wrist.
I think it's because you felt bad for me. Like, he's not going to quit, and I want to do other things.
Yeah, like you see, one has a definite dip more than the other one.
So yes, as a youth group leader,
he used to beat us all up.
Should I edit this out?
No, let it fly.
Let the freak flag fly.
Listen, growing up in the 90s, early 2000s, like
I blame
way more fun.
I blame the martial arts instructors for not teaching me more submission holds, because I would have known more. So that's really the moral of the story. If you're teaching children martial arts, teach them more submission holds.
See, I can't guarantee those would have worked either because I had a different instructor in Taekwondo discover that pressure points don't really work on me either. So,
we're make a choke, make a kid pass out. Hope that, I guess you ever see where someone just kind of digs? I'm doing that right. Stuff. But Taekwondo was a blast.
It was fun.
I have some fond memories of that.
Yeah. So,
but I remember when
that was a big part of the childhood too. Was the martial arts. That was a blast. I miss it sometimes. I actually still have my instructor's manual. I don't know if you know that. I actually partially became a junior instructor. I do remember because I had the red collar.
I was in and out. I got out, got back in, and as I was coming back out of it, you were just, I think, or you had, I'm trying to remember the timeline, but I remember you going after it. And did you get to first or second degree?
First degree, but I was the one in between first and second.
Okay, yeah. I got to second degree, and then I'm like, and I'm done.
Yeah, I was
like, I got, because I set the commitment, I got back into it, but I'm like, I got to get the second degree. And I had that beautiful form that I could have learned.
Yeah, no,
but I'm like, I got no motivation.
My last class that I ever went to, we had a guest appearance from the Grandmaster over all of ATA.
Was that when they had the new Grandmaster stepped in, or was that?
I don't remember.
Okay.
All I know is some old martial arts dude from Korea. Don't remember his name. He taught a class. And I, very enthusiastically, but very foolishly, volunteered to mirror him in front of the class. He kicked my butt.
What do you mean by mirror him?
Like he had one of us volunteer to essentially do his form.
With him?
Yes.
Oh.
After he had just worked us out for an hour and a half. That was a good time. But yeah, that was rough. That was a rough time.
Give me another martial arts story. Because I got one to... with some names to be like, oh boy.
So probably another good one was when I first transitioned from the teen class to the adult class. We had one instructor who every Friday it was a workout only class. Now his background before martial arts was kickboxing. So he was just a brute of a man.
Who was this?
Mr. Hager.
Oh,
yeah.
Dear Lord, Mr. Hager.
Yeah.
Yep.
This great man.
His name was Mr. Hager. Lives up to the name.
He had like the Macho Man mustache and everything.
He did.
Like that was his persona.
It wasn't just an image though. Like,
no, it was his.
That guy's a beast.
So he
sweet man too.
Oh
like,
yeah,
just the
heart
best.
of gold.
Yep.
But he loved to watch you hurt.
Well, Well, you're volunteering for it. You're like, you can get up and leave, but like your pride keeps you there.
Hour-long class. He called it a push-up marathon. We did a combination of push-ups and dead man sprints.
Okay, what's a dead man sprint?
Where like you're doing the push-ups and then you just get up, you just sprint as fast as you can to the other end of the room, do another rep of push-ups, and then you're sprinting back. That's what he called them anyway. I don't know if that's the official name or what, but that's what he called them. I think, we did around 700 push-ups as a whole class. Not as individuals, but as a whole class, collectively. But then about halfway through the class, he gave everybody a challenge. He said, if anybody can finish their reps before young Mr. Gibson, pointing at me, because my dad was in the class too, he has to do everyone's push-ups. So I don't think I've ever sweat that much in my life to make sure that I finished before everybody.
Oh, man.
So, I mean, I was 16. I just turned 16. And it was a great time. Heart of gold, man, that he loved to watch people hurt and sweat.
Well, again, it's like...
if you were not a puddle by the end of his class, he didn't do a good job.
I think I was going to tell... Yeah, I'm going to tell this one anyway. I'll save the other one for another time. But 15, 16, and I discovered Pizza Market. Now, Pizza Market in Goffstown, their slices are ginormous. I somehow managed to have 2 of those, no big deal, along with one of their steak and cheeses, which is about this long, and the steak and cheese is falling out. Like so they pack it as much as you can. They pack so it's like this big steak and cheese. It's ginormous, and 2 Cokes on a Thursday, which was they called it beating night. Just cardio, like just you're going. Mm-hmm. And the instructor caught wind that I had.
You hit all that before coming to the class.
And was determined. And he was determined for me to heave. I was good until he had us do sit-ups.
That's usually the one to do.
And I'm like, and I bolted for the bathroom. He goes, you feel better? I'm like, no, I feel worse. I have acid reflux, and I've been working out, and I just puked. How would I feel better? Oh, I usually feel better. I'm like, well,
my abs hurt and I have heartburn. Thanks.
Oh, fun times. We sign ourselves up for.
Yeah, I mean, we do.
Wouldn't trade it for anything.
No, it was great.
I'll tell it quickly. We had a jumping jack competition, and it came down to me and Matt Pearl. And you understand the rivalry we had.
I vaguely remember this class.
It came down to me and him. I got to 701 or something like that. He fell. The thing was, whoever does the most jumping jacks does not have to do push-ups at the end of the class. Okay? And that was the thing. We're still They moved the class outside because we were still going, and you wanted, room for people to do what they were doing.
Yeah.
And we're still going. Finally, he drops. Everyone comes in, bows us out. There was no push-ups whatsoever. I was not happy. But I still was okay. I didn't have to do push-ups. I'm not a big fan of push-ups. Fun times.
Yeah. Well,
But that was kind of late teen years, and then you ended up heading out to Bible college at some point, right?
Yep. When I was 18, ended up going out to Bible college in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which was amazing. That was in 2013.
Was that always on your radar, or was that what led to that?
So it was the same. My brother went to the same Bible college in 2005, so I had already known about it. The church we grew up in had a lot of materials from this Bible college, so I mean, about it was always somewhat on the radar. Mm-hmm. Looking back, I more made the decision to, follow a friend of mine rather than feel led to go myself.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it was still the plan, just not how I anticipated it, obviously. Sure. But it was great. My first year there was incredible. Learned so much. Really started to come into my own relationship with God in a way that was actually real.
So what's the difference between, because we both grew up in church.
Yeah.
what's the difference from the cultural aspect of like my family goes, to okay now discovering for yourself like
I mean, I guess it's like comparing something where it's just like, okay, we do this, just because we've always done it,
Yep.
versus, oh no, this is mine. I own this. I need to cultivate this. I need to take care of this. It's not really any different than, being in a house with multiple siblings, right? And you share everything, right? You do everything together. And then you come to something or you get something that is yours. It is your responsibility. It is your privilege, and it is also your pleasure to take care of this thing.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's the same way. I mean, growing up in the church, I always knew God, in some ways legalistically, but in some ways otherwise. Like I've always known Scripture, had a decent head knowledge of Scripture.
Sure.
I was involved with stuff going to youth group, but looking back, my relationship with God was always slightly deeper than face value, I guess would be a good way to put it.
I hear you.
Because like there were certain things that I would experience that, your average Joe Christian, I guess, wouldn't. But then at the end of the day, like I would find myself still exhibiting behaviors that, really weren't any better than the world.
Yeah.
And then when I went to Bible college, really got that almost culture shock of, oh, wow, I've really neglected this. And now I need to deal with that. So kind of had a hit the ground running scenario. And that was my first year of Bible college, which was just incredible. And again, looking back, my first year prepared me for everything else I experienced in the state of Oklahoma, because then we also come to the fact that because I wasn't explicitly called to Bible college, that I found myself making certain mistakes that led me to drop out of said Bible college in my second year. And going through, I guess, a 6-month period of total, just full-on rebellion, in all honesty. Cut off contact from my family, any and all friends I had, ran from everyone. It was bad.
I mean, looking back, why do you think? Because that happens a lot with those raised in the church, where they have that season where they're just like, whether it's I'm angry with this, I'm just done, I don't care, or I mean, that's kind of like on the surface level.
Yeah.
There's something deeper usually, and I can allude to.
Well, I think that's actually what it is in and of itself, because I mean, like I said, like I didn't have that deep relationship with God. It was just slightly deeper than face value. So when I experienced real world out on my own, 1,400 miles away from everything I had ever known.
Well, so none of the safety nets.
Yeah.
And
so naturally, like when something comes my way that is pulling me one way or the other, like I'm not anchored to anything realistically. My roots are shallow. I'm on rocky ground. And when the first thing comes to grab me, I'm coming right out of the ground.
Yeah.
And that's realistically what happens. And I mean, granted, I did it willingly, but I did that because my roots weren't deep, because I didn't have that relationship with God that I should have had. And that was it's still wild to me that it was only a 6-month period, because it felt like 10 years.
Yeah.
And when I finally came to the end of it, I literally came to the end of myself. I got to experience what the Scripture talks about in the parable of the prodigal, like the father being right there, right? Like, but for me, it wasn't even like, I made the decision to go back and I see him running. No, I turned around and he was right there.
Wow.
Like showing that he wasn't just waiting for me, but he was walking with me through my 6-month mess, which is still wild to me. And granted, I had a long journey of, repentance and reconciliation with various people, and there's certain friendships I never got back. And I mean, it sucks, but it also is the cost when we make certain mistakes.
Well, repentance is it's a 180 about face. It's changing the way you think. It's a paradigm shift. What's one of the major paradigm shifts that kind of pulled you out of the I mean, you share the prodigal, the realization that like, wait, that's how he looks at me. It's personalized. I mean, that's something else.
Yeah.
You know, experiencing the Father's love like that. But what's another, aha moment, I guess, that kind of pulled you out of the darkness? Because I assume it got a little dark in that time, right? When you're raised in that environment.
To be completely frank, I mean, I attempted suicide.
Whoa. Okay.
When I had finally lost the things that I had chose, in place of God, in place of my family, in place of anyone, when those things finally abandoned me and I had literally nothing, I attempted suicide. I essentially, I'm a big collector of blades and other things, and I took a knife and I literally just started going into my chest and did it until I exhausted myself and passed out, like overcome by a level of exhaustion that to this day I can't describe. And I woke up the next morning with it still in my hand, chest covered in blood, and come to find out I had somehow picked up the only knife in my collection I didn't sharpen the previous day.
Come on.
So it did very little damage. It did damage that could heal over time.
Yeah.
To the point where I don't even have any scars where I was going for it. So like that was clearly God, because I mean, if you see any of my swords or any of my knives or anything, like I oiled them, I sharpened them on a regular basis. The fact that I missed one in and of itself was a God thing. And yeah, coming to that realization of, okay, I'm still here. That exhaustion in and of itself didn't feel natural.
Yeah.
I'm awake. I'm here. Clearly there's a reason. So I cleaned myself up, cleaned up the blade, cleaned up everything, and went to work that day and went through about a week-long process of, okay, God, I'm still here. I royally screwed up. Show me how to redo everything, how to make this right. And I started to. I went down that process. During that season, looking back, because I know this whole thing's about fathership and all that stuff, and family. Let me backtrack a little bit. During that time, as I was running from my family and my friends, everything, I ended up in a situation where I was employed was a bunch of graduates from the school I had run away from. One of the managers there was my now wife, who was good friends with these same graduates. And so, I mean, behind the scenes, God was working something, being like, oh, he's running. No, he's not.
No, I mean, that's the other point of the show is to, thank you already, and I'll thank you a million times for being that vulnerable to share the hard. Because I want people listening to know that they're not the only ones that struggle with those thoughts, that get to those dark places, and just to encourage people, you don't have to go there. You don't have to live there. God, God works for me, works for you, and this is why. Because like he is love, and he's there waiting for you. But I want people hearing to know the hard and be able to find that strength to keep going.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's just he was there in every aspect of it.
But but I want people to be able to see, because I have a lot of believing friends.
Oh yeah.
And you might find this with them, that the way God, like the way he works in our lives, because you ask him to. Yeah. And all of a sudden these coincidental things and he just so happens to happen. Like that was why I kind of went there. It's like, man, he's working when you give him the right to. And he's just standing by waiting, like, give me the pen to your story. I'll make something amazing. Even from the dark places to the amazing places I bring you. So that's one reason why Christianity works for me.
That's funny that you say that, because that's even in scripture, right? Like it talks about the Lamb's book of life, but it also talks about the books. That at the end, the judgment, everything, he will open up the books. What are the books? It's the story of our lives.
Oh man!
Each one of us has a book that he's written.
Yeah. On
top of the book of life, and scripture references those other books. What do you think those are?
Yeah.
Literally, what we're talking about, what we're exchanging.
So this is going to be recited in your book right now. And then you went to Panera, and just so happened, take it away, Elijah.
Yeah, no, it's gonna
I love this.
And yeah, so where was I? Yeah. So, where I was during this season of rebellion, he was still already there orchestrating things, in the background to the point where, here I am broken, coming back to him, being like, all right, screwed up. I'll give you everything. Just, fix it because I don't know how.
Yeah. Well, it says in James, the book of James, not me, but I like to quote it. Any man lacks wisdom, just let him ask.
Yeah.
I'm not going to shove you away. I'll give you wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah.
So carry on. Sorry, you
so,
get me all excited.
No, I mean, it's cool. And it is exciting because, it's testimony.
Mm.
This isn't something I'm ashamed of because, I had these low moments. Like, no, this is God's victory in my life.
Yeah.
This is the proof that he's real. For me.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a force on this planet that could ever pull me away from that because it's experience.
Yeah.
A man with experience will never be at the mercy of a man with a theory.
Hello.
Period.
Hello.
So yeah.
we're getting to the.
So
you work at the because you end up working at that Panera.
Yep.
Okay.
So this particular Panera was the third one I worked at. Because I worked at one in Bedford, New Hampshire. Worked at one in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, and then this was one in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Okay.
Like 5 minutes away from the other one. But yeah, so my now wife was a manager at this one. So I had started to get to know her. Come to find out, now that I've, turned back to God, that her and these other people in the store had been praying for me the whole time.
Give me a break.
Of course,
Come on.
Naturally here at home, my mother was praying for me.
Yeah, sure.
My father was praying for me. Which
it's the combination of it all.
But nothing will ever get in the way of a praying mother. Just throwing that out there.
That could be one of Steven Crowder's Change My Mind episodes.
Yeah, no, for real.
I had a lot of people praying for me when I went through my rebellious time. But man, I know Mama's tears goes a long way.
They say, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. No, hell hath no fury like a praying mother. That is fervent prayer.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I am a product of that. I would not be here today if my mother was not praying for me. If these other people that didn't even know were praying for me were praying for me.
But that's also important to point out because there's thousands of people that have been hurt and burned by people in the church, and that's what you usually hear is, they didn't care, they judged me, they this, they that, they took my money, all that. But a place that they easily could have just been okay, this moron. Or this rebellious, whatever. No, they responded with he's hurting.
Mm-hmm.
Let's intercede and pray on his behalf.
All right.
So there's that side of it too that needs to be spoken about, because that's 90% of my experience.
Mm-hmm.
Is within Christianity, you're a part of this global family.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it should be.
That's why I think it's in Hebrews. And it says, do not forsake the assembly of the brethren. That's the kind of gathering it's talking about. That's talking about the church, right? But it's talking about the collective of we don't forsake each other. We assemble together. We fellowship together. We chase God together.
Yes.
We seek him together. In everything that we do, we share our faults. We share our shortcomings. We share our hurts.
Mm.
We share our testimony. We share our joy. We share our praise. We can pray together. We can do all these things together and for each other.
Yeah.
That's how it's supposed to be. It's how it always was supposed to be.
Mm.
Just because you have a handful of, I say a handful because in the grand scheme of things, it is a handful. A lot of the issues with the church today are primarily a Western issue. It's a cultural issue more than anything.
Yeah.
You're not going to go to some of the Eastern world or the persecuted church areas and find a church that acts like some of the Western church. You're just not. They are the church personified.
Mm.
They really are. Because they have to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
They know the goodness of God better than anybody. And if we were more like that, we would see a lot more stuff happening. We'd see.
Well, I think there's testing in all things. One of when you're going through persecution, that's one. But testing in a place where you essentially have you have everything at your disposal here. So it's very comfortable.
Well, that's also the point where we need to reevaluate what's really testing, because in my case, my biggest persecution came from myself.
Yeah.
That's still persecution.
Sure.
There was still testing there.
Yeah.
And come to find out when I got to the end of it, again, to continue the story, here I was going back into work and come to find out, okay, these people were praying for me. I started to build friendships with these people. you know, continuing to talk, and, you know, a big desire of mine, as I said, from my childhood, was family, was to have children. You know, a big thing that got me into rebellion was unequally yoked and bad relationships, right? You know, went after a girl I shouldn't have gone after. You know, so when I came to the end myself and went back to God, I just, you know, I threw a question out to God and a promise to him, like, I will give you everything, just please don't make me wait, because this is my heart's desire.
Wait for what?
The right woman.
Okay. So you're praying, and
2 weeks after that prayer, my now wife and I started going out. Yeah, it was awesome. We talked scripture together. We actually dated in a healthy way. You know, we we did some Bible study type stuff together. When we talked scripture a lot, actually. You know, we talked about, you know, the church, God, and God's people, Israel, and prophecy, all these things. We would just get into these conversations. You know, so we just, and on a personal level, we would just get to know each other better. And come to find out, she had a son who was at the time 6 going on 7.
Oh wow. He's
so
mid to late teens now, right? Like,
he'll be 18 in January.
what?
He's 17.
So, I'm trying, because I had him at youth group when I was.
Yeah. They
let me back at leading youth. They must not have heard the original story of me breaking people's wrists. Actually, I was expanding your flexibility, so I don't want to hear about it. Anyways, it's been awesome to see him also grow, develop.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that was...
Got to know him a little more and more from the rides home. You know, so I can beat the taxi. As you, appreciate awesome. You too, being the taxi.
Yes.
Split duty.
It's easier now that I have a larger vehicle. So
yes.
I think I have next week, right? Yeah, I have next week. This week.
Hopefully this week, or your dad, because I'm going on.
No, I said I'll take this week. That's right. That's what we talked about.
But so after how soon after you guys start going out do you meet her son?
I want to say a month-ish.
So
it was relatively soon. Because I mean, she was of the opinion where she wasn't going to date unless it went down the road to marriage, which is how it should be. And I was obviously at this point of the same mind.
You're literally just praying that. Like I don't want to waste time.
Yeah.
Let's just.
And I mean, coming from a background of wanting family, wanting kids, like whether or not she had a kid was not. It was a non-issue for me. So yeah, I mean, after about a month of going out for coffee, for the most part, talking. I went over her house for the first time, met her son. I think we ended up going to like a park or something. And yeah, I mean, in some ways, he was an odd kid, but I mean, I grew up an odd kid, so that wasn't an issue. It was another learning curve for me, because here I am, I was 20 years old. 20 years old.
Wow.
Realizing that, okay, I'm now dating this woman. She has a son. So I'm now going to have to step into the role of father for a almost 7-year-old.
That was on your mind, like, if I'm going to get involved with her, like, it's not going to be an afterthought.
Yeah,
like,
no, it's a 2-for-1 deal. Like, it's just from the get-go. And I mean, it was, again, other than the learning curve, it really wasn't. I mean, he didn't really have much of any kind of father figure in his life, other than the moments where his uncles, my wife's brothers, were around. Really didn't have any kind of real father figure.
Did he kind of take to you quickly, or was it
relatively? I mean, it wasn't a huge like change for the most part.
Yeah.
I mean, there was some slight, not really challenges or battles, but slight, like, I don't know how to describe it, like wrinkles to iron, essentially.
Sure, but
where it was definitely like, okay, this is life now, realistically.
Yeah.
You know, we continued dating for a few months. We're now in May or June of 2015. May. I want to say May. I don't know. This part is where the dates start to get a bit hazy.
Sure.
My parents came to Oklahoma because I was making the decision to, I was going to be going back to New Hampshire for originally just the summer, and I was going to redo my second year at Bible college. That was the plan initially. Her and her son ended up coming to New Hampshire to visit. It was originally supposed to be for like a month. In the summer of 2015. We had been dating, I don't even know how many months at this point. And I don't even know how it happened, but in a roundabout way, the decision ended up happening where I didn't go back to redo my second year. I ended up staying in New Hampshire.
Mm-hmm.
Her and her son stayed in New Hampshire.
Okay.
Which was an interesting scenario. There was like, I don't know, 13 of us living at my parents' house, all in different areas of the house because we weren't married yet. So we were separated. My sister for a time was living there, and then my younger sister was still a minor, so she was living there. So a lot of us, just some of us were in the basement, some of us were upstairs. It was an interesting living day.
Sure.
We made it work for one of us. I ended up proposing, obviously, again, I knew. We had known, there were some people within the church we were going to that knew, and I ended up proposing in the fall of 2015. Yes, because we were in a corn maze. I proposed in a corn maze.
I wish you couldn't escape.
Well, it was really funny because it was so subtle she didn't even know I was proposing. Because we were on one of those lookout things that overlooked the corn maze. And I just suddenly threw my knee up like on a higher step. So she had no idea I was proposing.
That's awesome.
It was great. Yeah, so that was in the fall of 2015. We got married May of 2016.
Okay.
So we got May 7th, 2016. Day before Mother's Day. Because we almost got married on Mother's Day, and then I realized nobody wanted to go to a wedding on Mother's Day. So
it's difficult.
It is difficult.
It's a hard sell. I mean, if you like a challenge.
No. I mean, I love a challenge, but no. We were going for as low-key as possible. Almost eloped. My family was not having that, which we
It's a tight-knit family.
It is. It's a very tight-knit family. It wasn't a bad thing.
No,
it's
like, like...
It was, yeah.
You want to be able to go to the wedding.
Exactly. So we did
a
low-key. We did a low-key wedding. We did a breakfast wedding.
Cool.
So basically, we saved as much money as possible.
Okay.
And just dumped it on the honeymoon, and it was awesome.
How about that? So let's jump ahead a little bit because did you be at least a father figure to Yuri?
Mm-hmm.
Did you adopt him or?
Officially, I've not done that. There's a long story behind that, and he is my son. I father him.
Yes.
He has only ever viewed me as his dad. There was some. His donor on the birth certificate. You can't really just trying to get him to sign off.
Instead of opening up that can of worms, keep him out of it.
Yeah.
But for all intents and purposes,
he's not in the picture, but his name's still on the birth certificate. So it's just
your dad.
Yeah, so I'm dad.
And you look at that way from
pretty much from
if I'm going to marry this woman, that's my son.
Yeah. So
you raised him that way.
I think we were only. He was calling me dad before I even proposed.
That's cool.
So we had gotten.
That's
to that
cool.
point.
And you're not the type to be like, listen, but like. You established that relationship, and right?
not the ways not in the best ways I could have.
Oh, okay.
There were definitely the first few years, a lot of highs and lows. Definitely, because again, it was one of those I kind of had to hit the ground running sort of scenarios because I'm now fathering a 7+-year-old.
In figuring that out on the fly.
Having my primary experience being helping with my nephew and my younger sister.
Yeah.
So I mean, I had basics, understood, but you don't really understand fatherhood at all until you're really doing it. It's just kind of like with the relationship with God thing, until you really own it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is mine now.
Yeah.
Like, you really only can go so far with a younger sibling or a nephew or niece or whatever. Until that kid is yours, you really have no idea what you're talking about.
But he was 6 or 7 when you met him, right?
Yep.
So now you get the news, hey, honey, got a baby on the way.
Yep. So we were married, 6 months.
Yep.
When she was pregnant with Elias.
Okay.
He was born in 2017, April.
So what was that like? Okay, baby on the way. Because that's a whole different like. Did any hearing the news, was that the big thing, or was it when baby came you're like, oh, this is different, or was it different? Like, what was some of the? Now you got an infant child who is.
I've had a lot of culture shock moments in my life.
Sure.
Where like I have come to embody the scripture that says a man may make his plans, but God directs his steps.
Okay.
And I think it's the Message translation that says it. A man makes his plans and God laughs. I've come to embody that phrase because I have tried so many times to make my own plans or think of how things should be, only to have the rug pulled out from under me in one way or another by varying circumstances. And that was just kind of another one of those things where I thought it was going to be one way and God clearly had other plans. And I needed to learn to either submit in a way and be like, okay, we can go this way together, or you can drag me. Either way, I'm going that way. And I know that it, some people may hear that and be like, oh, that sounds harsh. It's really not. It's only as harsh as we make it. Like I'll walk with God can be as painless as possible if we allow it to be. The pain only comes when we resist in some ways.
Fair enough. But I guess one of the things I want to point out, because when I had, baby on the way, this changed immediately. Once you get the news, I'm like, I was at the dead end job. So I was like, I got to go to school. I did like the father version of nesting in that moment. But whereas you took Yuri in, like he's your son.
So I took Yuri in, but realistically, looking back, I really did not own the mantle of father probably till Yuri was around 10 and Elias was about 2 or 3.
Okay.
I was very more hands-off, complacent father than I should have been in a lot of ways. I mean, in some ways I could go back and blame my job. I was working 40 to 75, 8-ish hours a week on nights, some weekends. I'd at least do a 14-day stretch every other month.
Well, it's just, at the same time, you can't beat yourself up too much because that's father instinct number one.
Well, but also I was very young. As many people have told me, I was always mature for my age. I was still young. I was now 23-ish, somewhere in that vein. I haven't kept track. I have to remind myself I'm 30.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm 45 at this point. But even scientifically, you can look this up. MIT did this study. Your brain does not actually finish until you're 25. The part of your brain that fully controls are really the part of the brain that handles common sense and decision making and following through with those decisions does not finish until you're 25.
It's science.
And that was a part that I lacked, clearly. And I would get super mad whenever people brought it up because I knew it was mature for my age. And I knew I handled things better than most people my age.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things I said similarly, it's like I projected myself as more mature than I was.
100%.
So then you have that expectation. So then people don't respond very well when you don't act the age they expect you to be.
Yes.
And then you have a moment where you're acting less than your age.
Yeah.
So I get that.
So, I definitely, on a face value, I kept things good. I kept the illusion in a way that nobody really saw more than what I allowed, in a sense. When in reality, behind the scenes, it was definitely not the father I should have been. Wasn't 100% the husband I should have been. And I was still very much learning. I was still, realistically, as a Christian, just as a Christian, I had only truly been a Christian, in my opinion, for 4 years at this point. So
that being the point of all out surrender, no turn back. This is the way it is, exactly. And we're not dilly dallying.
So naturally, I'm still having those moments of being caught up in myself and just kind of still trying to make my own plans foolishly, and just going for what I think I need to do, making mistakes along the way, fumbling from time to time,
They call that the refinement process.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So here's my next question, because my last guest, I kind of brought up a similar thing, because okay, you got two boys. Well, now you got another baby on the way. Well, you got another one now. We're going in order here. You get news you're having another child.
Mm-hmm.
This one's going to be a girl.
Yeah.
And there's just something special about being a girl dad.
Yeah, I do need to backtrack a little bit, though.
I'll let you backtrack, but you see where I'm going.
Oh, yeah,
so
I know
get us
where
there,
you're going.
Elijah. Get us there.
Yeah, so we'll flash forward to 2019.
Okay.
So 2019, we really started to essentially level out in a way. Moved out of Manchester, moved up north to Barnstead, bought a house. That's when things really started to shift in a lot of ways. I kind of started to have some wake-up calls, both in my work life and at home life, and really started to pick up that mantle.
Okay.
So 2019. We're now at the point of home ownership, 2 sons, now own 2 vehicles. Yep. Really just doing things that most people in my age bracket did not have at their disposal. And, building an empire for myself in a way. God's hand was on the whole thing, but still, like, I'm building an empire, realistically. Mm. Really starting to own fathership at that point, starting to try to do more stuff with my boys and really teach them. Still making plenty of mistakes. And then finally realizing, okay, I'm not really going to live the way I need to live if I'm in this job. This job's now a dead-end job that I've been working for 6-ish years now, 6-7 years. I need to get out. COVID happens. Which actually killed off my opportunity to get into management in that job, which looking back was a God thing, because I would probably still be at that job today and I would be hating every aspect of my life if I was still at that job.
I know the feeling.
Found another job that was a little closer to home. It was in Concord as a stone trimmer for a granite company. And this is when I really, I've said this a couple times now, but it was at this point where I finally was sold out. Because when I left that job and went to this job, I basically hit the reset button on everything.
Wow.
Started building a routine with prayer, routine with my boys, routine with Nicole, everything. And when I got to this job, what's funny is, because they were diamond saws and hydro saws and drills, and it's a quarry, it's loud. All this machinery, I realized I could talk at a nominal level, and no one could hear me. Because, we all had hearing protection on, and we all worked, feet apart from each other. And at the beginning of COVID, we all wore masks outside. There
you go.
Anyway.
Keep some of that dust out, I guess. I don't know.
It really didn't. That silica dust got everywhere.
Actually, you got a little...
No, you joke, but for real.
That's with me and my border collie's hair.
Yeah.
I'll be painting a wheel, and I'm like, oh, man.
Little dog hair. But the volume of the job site, I realized I could pray out loud. So I then spent the next 2 years at that job completely rebuilding my prayer life.
Wow.
And really finally doing what God's clearly been telling me to do forever now. And started finally exemplifying for my boys, okay, this is what a man is. This is how he acts. This is how he treats a woman. This is how he responds to difficulties. This is how things work. And I mean, in some ways with Yuri, it felt a little late, but after a while, he started following suit.
Wow.
With Elias, he's a little scatterbrained sometimes, but he gets it for the most part.
Yeah.
He has that hunger. He asks the questions about scripture and about prayer and all these things.
But you're also modeling it, so it has a mental framework being established daily. to fall
from
back
that
on.
moment
So
on, like the home life improvements were just insane, and they were constant.
yeah,
I mean, Nicole and I grew closer together than we had pretty much since we started dating. Me and my relationship with my boys just became incredible from that point forward. And then yes, we get to 2022. I had now been at this job for 2 years. Kind of started to feel a pull away from it in some ways. At this point, had become very, very involved in the church, more so than I had been a volunteer at the church this whole time, and in the aspects of production and helping out with some tech stuff, but really just kind of giving everything to God. Kind of started feeling off being so far from the city. Was starting to feel like we needed to be in the city more. And then we felt, and my wife and I started to feel pull to kind of leave our jobs, which was a big deal, and focus on ministry and family and God. I'm paraphrasing and summarizing a lot of this because we'd be here for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah.
And we did over the course of, I think, 8 months. We had both left our jobs. We went from 6-figure income to a no-figure income for a time.
Yep.
Got offered a staff position at the church that we were going to as their production director after a couple months of no income. So started to get an income again. And then also a little bit before that happened, my parents had and there was a little bit of friction in the beginning of this journey. But my parents really started to see God in it, and they kind of came alongside us. They would help. They helped us out with a few things here and there, and they were supporting us, but also like a lot of prayer.
Yeah.
Constantly praying for us. And then I got the job at the church. But then also now we're driving an hour almost every day from Barnstead to Manchester to do stuff at the church, do events, do other things. We ended up little by little giving up everything. Like I told you, I was building that empire.
Yeah.
Little by little started giving up every single piece of that empire.
See, brick by brick, kind of.
Just full dismantle. Whether it be the vehicles, whether it be the house. I mean, from a worldly perspective, you could be like, oh, you lost those things. They were taken from you. I walked out of a house, 2 vehicles, credit cards. I walked out of it all debt-free. That doesn't happen unless it's by God's design. It's like, I can look back and the only debts I have are a couple like $100 things that I still got to pay off. But everything was wiped away in one way or another.
So American dream that was like you could have kept if you wanted to dedicate your life and soul to a job that was basically sucking the life out of you. You let it go, and I'm sure there are people close to you that had opinions that might have been like, "What the heck is he doing?
Yep.
What the heck is she doing? Are they mental?"
A lot of it turned into okay, wait and see.
Yep.
Wait and see. For better or worse, wait and see.
Did you have peace
all the way through it? Definitely had a couple days of, well, I say days, but a couple moments of up to here stress levels because I didn't understand certain things, but I knew I was hearing God.
Yep.
And it was wild. There were things where I thought they were going to be handled a particular way, and then when that didn't happen, I'd be like, "Hey God, I trust you. What are we doing?" And again, like we see things only from a current perspective. We really don't see God's hand in certain things until we look back on them. So I did have that peace, and again, Scripture says the peace beyond understanding. It was peace that made literally no sense because here I am, who's making all this money, had all these things, and now I'm watching them go away, fall away in one way or another, one after the other. And it wasn't until it was all gone until I realized all of those things I had built, although I had God's favor, I built them according to the world's system, how society says you do it, how our government says you do it. I had been, before that point, been fathering how society would say father. There were plenty of times with Yuri. Yuri, he has Asperger's, which is similar to autism.
Mm-hmm.
There was a good chunk of his childhood where I was fathering like hammered down, being like disciplined, and I had to learn, by the grace of God, I can't do that with him.
Yeah,
it doesn't work.
Yeah,
it makes my job harder, and it pushes him further away.
Yeah.
Each of my children are very different in the way that I have to handle them. There's no cookie cutter way to parent, other than relying on God. That's the only consistency I could honestly give anybody. Where like, if you're relying on God, you're going to find a way.
Well, it's kind of neat because again, going through what you went through and watching the empire kind of be dismantled in front of you, but to be like, you know what, I don't need it.
Oh yeah.
So now that's not that your sense of security isn't your material possessions.
The day we packed up the U-Haul from the house and came to Manchester, we're living with my parents currently, but the day we did that, my dad, I remember he stood in my living room with me, now in an empty house, and he's like, "Are you okay?" And I just kind of smiled at him. I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Because this isn't where I'm supposed to be. Like, this wasn't the end game." And away we went. Hauled the largest U-Haul that they make from Barnstead back to Manchester. In about 48 hours ish, unloaded everything into my parents' house in their garage. We just, we made it work. And definitely still had plenty of questions along the way. Oh, flashback, because I'm actually getting ahead of myself. Before we left the house, 6 months into not having those jobs anymore, that's when Nicole became pregnant with JL, our daughter.
Oh,
so in the height of all of this, or the height of the beginning, I should say.
Oh, by the way.
Yeah, all this, no income, and you having another kid, by the way. Here's another. That was definitely an interesting experience, because if you want to talk about wake-up calls of like massive scale, it was like, okay, God, we're doing all this, and now we're having another kid. Yeah, cool. God, I live in America and babies are expensive. And it was interesting. So we have all that. We can flash back forward again. So, we come back to Manchester, we're living with my parents, and there are some difficulties here and there, but for the most part, everything is just it's good. I start seeing relationships building with us and my parents, where there was in the past maybe some friction or contention between me and my wife and maybe some of my siblings, that started to kind of fall away.
Nice. And
we started building a relationship with each other, as we're all growing together, as we're all parenting together, as we're all doing these things together, seeking God together for each other. It was actually funny, on topic of, we were talking about my nephew. Literally the day that we're unloading the trailer, he looked at me and he's like, I've been reading a lot in scripture about carrying your cross, and to me, it looks like that's what you're doing. And I just was stunned for a moment. He's 14. No, he's 15. He was 13 or 14. Yeah. And he really had only just started. He'd been going to youth group for a bit now, but he had only really started to come into his beliefs, really. And so to hear that from him, it was one of those take a step back moments of okay, cool. To hear that from one of my nephews, is a big deal to me,
for sure.
Because one, that's the nephew that made me an uncle, for one, but two, when you hear it from somebody you don't expect, you're going in the right direction. And it was a wild ride the whole way through it, but we made that work because God's hand was on it, because He made it work. Because otherwise, like, if we were to rewind X amount of years, there's no way that could have worked.
Yeah.
It just would have made no logistical sense. I was not in a place to make it work. I think the rest of my family, like with all of our individual stuff, it just wouldn't have worked. It would have been chaos. I mean, it's still chaos, but it's a better form of chaos, I guess, because
it's the chaos that God's given you the grace to walk through.
it's like, the day of Pentecost when the Holy Spirit comes down and everybody's talking different languages and there's fire tongues over people's heads. That's, from our perspective, that was chaos.
That's pretty much, I would qualify.
But, God's hand was on it, right? Like, there was an order to it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I feel, when we were going through, the pregnancy with JL. This, again, like, nothing made sense. But, we'd get, the odd envelope of money, and, like, things would just happen. Stuff would be covered. Like, bills would just get paid. On the topic of debts, I had an old debt just come at me in the court system that I owed a lot of money to, that when we really looked at the documentation, it appeared to be, past the date that can be collected. And, prayed about it, was honest about it, filled out the paperwork I needed to fill out, and the day it was supposed to go to trial, they dropped it. So that's just gone. Dropped off my credit report and everything. Like, it just disappeared, right? So that kind of stuff, it happened in an inexplainable way that I can only give credit to God.
Yeah.
And to see that He's provided for things. And then we flash forward to, now my daughter's coming, it is now November 2023. Yeah. Keeping track of dates now.
Yeah.
2 weeks before Thanksgiving. Yeah, November 14th. Here comes my daughter. I now have 3 children. But I have a daughter.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I kept this to myself the entire pregnancy, but as much as I love my boys,
yep.
Okay, I know they're going to watch
Full
this.
disclaimer, we love our boys.
I don't have favorite kids, but there was something in me that always wanted a daughter. I wanted kids as a whole, and I knew I was going to have sons, because also, I kept this from my wife for years, but I always knew I was going to have 4 kids. I knew from childhood that I was going to have 4.
Yeah.
Didn't know what they were going to be, but I knew I was going to have 4. As of August, I will have my 4th. My wife was never, if she had kids, for the most part, she wanted to adopt. She never really, in the beginning, was never really interested in having kids.
Yeah. Was
of opinion where, there's plenty of kids in the world, like, that don't have parents, let me adopt if I have kids.
Right.
And now here she is with 4 of her own. And I told her a few weeks ago, I was like, listen, you may not have wanted this, but God had you marry a guy that knew he was going to have 4. So take it up to the big. But I always knew. But as far as I wanted a daughter.
Yeah.
So I knew from the get-go that we were having a daughter way before, and I just kept it to myself. For a while, we kind of thought it might be twins, because just the way that the pregnancy was, it was very different. My wife was craving an obscene amount of protein. Can't even tell you how much steak and burgers and other heavy protein foods we went through during that pregnancy. Like, we were convinced for a time. I shouldn't say convinced, because again, I knew we were having a daughter. But there was a season where I was like, okay, maybe there's 2 in there. Then there wasn't. And she wasn't even that big of a baby. She was 7.5 pounds.
Huh.
Elias was 10 pounds.
Ooh.
He was a big boy.
Ooh.
So here comes this tiny little baby. But yeah, there was definitely a whole different atmosphere to it when she came. Is that it's my little girl. And yeah, my boys, my son, he'll be all over his mother. Yuri, he's 17. He keeps to himself. We'll do some things together, either I'll take him out driving, or we'll play a video game together. What's that? Elias, our big bonding time is I've been reading The Lord of the Rings to him.
Nice.
For bed, because full disclaimer, huge Tolkien fan.
Yeah. That's fair.
We got the tree here.
He's got the tree. He's got the tree.
Yeah. It is.
Now,
love talking.
I'm going to try to land the plane a little bit, but there's a couple things I want to dig into real quick.
Okay.
We were talking a little before, and it was that kind of aha thing, because you dropped a plan you had, because you mentioned you love engineering. You wanted to go somewhere.
So before I went to Bible college, I wanted to. My dad works for MIT Lincoln Labs. There was the opportunity for scholarship there to go to MIT for engineering. I finished. I was homeschooled. I finished school at 16. Like I skipped 2 grades just because I could. That's something I wanted to do. I wanted to build stuff. I wanted to learn to design mechanical things.
Yep.
Ended up going to Bible college, so I gave all that up. Never pursued it again. Never picked it back up.
Mm-hmm.
When I made the decision to go to Bible college, advanced mathematics was the first thing I dumped out of the back of my head to the point where I can't even help Yuri with the school nowadays. The kid's brilliant. He's doing advanced calculus right now. Jeez. Ludicrously smart. So yeah, I'm of no help to him. So yeah, I wanted to get into 3D printing, CNC machining, mechanical engineering, and design. Gave it all up. Went to Bible college. In the process of coming in, or marrying a woman that had a son already, a son who was very mechanically inclined and very smart.
Yeah.
This past year, we ended up getting the homeschooling grant to help out with schooling. Mm-hmm. We asked him, "What do you want to do?" And he said, "I want to get into 3D printing." So we got him a 3D printer, and then we got him a second 3D printer. And him and I have been playing with it and learning stuff, and we started getting into the 3D design. And then I kind of had that moment of I'm watching some of the stuff that we're making, and I'm thinking about it. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I was like, it's one of those things where God himself circles back, and he's like, hey, remember that thing you gave up? Here's a son who embodies the passions you had so that you can do something with him. And you can do it together.
That's awesome.
So like him and I have been looking into, starting a business with it, like a 3D printing service, and, designing props and other things. Like my brother is directing a show for, I think it's a youth show. It's a teen show. He's directing Percy Jackson.
Okay. Oh, wow.
And I 3D printed him the Riptide, the pen sword. I printed him a collapsible pen sword as a stage prop. And he has it. I'll throw a picture up on it.
So I hear these stories a lot of people kind of giving their dreams up in a sense, so out of obedience to the Lord, and he kind of sets. Like I gave up music for a while because it was who I was. I was the music guy, and being able to like distance myself from that, not be my identity. Now I can enjoy music more than ever. But it's cool how you give it up, but the Lord circles back and kind of reestablishes it in your life, and you can enjoy it, better than ever. And now he gets a chance to grow closer to his son in something that he's passionate about. But I don't see that picture.
So that's the blade fully extended.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's black handle. I ended up painting the inlays of the handle gold. And then the blade is gold, and it is, and it looks like just a large pen when it's collapsed and the cap's on it. Like it's very cool. And it's just something that, so we've started also dabbling in like the actual 3D design aspect, so that we're making our own print files for our own things that we could even copyright further on down the road.
Wow.
There's this whole business to be had there. And it's just very cool because it's something that him and I can do together. And we're both passionate about it. And again, he is ludicrously smart to the point where he can do some things in some of the programs that I just can't do.
Yeah. But you have wisdom, life experience, and
So it's been a trip, and now we've got the 4th kid coming, little Levi.
Oh, that's awesome.
He'll be here in August.
Can't wait to meet him.
And that will bring us up to 6 as a total. Me, my wife, our 4 kids.
Oh, family of 6, yeah.
Yeah, we will actually be on par in terms of who is here with my parents. And my parents technically had 5 kids. My mother lost one between me and my sister. But then there's 4 of us here on Earth. The other one's, she's in heaven. We'll meet her when we get there. So it's cool to see our family for what it is, to see the growth that's been happening in all of my family. Like me and my older sister, we've had some deep conversations recently that we would have never had when we were younger.
Yeah.
It's been awesome.
That's cool.
The growth of the family dynamic, and what we're doing both physically, spiritually, what we want to do here in our city, in our state, and just as a whole in our country, as we focus on what we need to do as a family, what we need to do as Christ followers, and living that example. And yeah, we still make mistakes along the way, of course. We're making progress day by day. But it's been awesome. And to see where I can go fathering my children has been a big deal to me, because it's been more real these past few years than it has been realistically the whole time I've been a father. But I've also seen more growth in my children than I did previously. And it's awesome.
It's a fun ride. So I have my question I ask everybody, all three of them. Hey, you gotta start somewhere. But this is, I'm having a blast doing
this. Voice of the first person.
Yes. You can use your imagination. Great guy. Thank you, Steve, by the way. He really helped get the forward motion. I'd probably still be analyzing. I'd still be being analysis paralysis if it wasn't for Steve. So thank you, Steve. Huge shout out. But I'm going to tailor fit my question to you a little bit, because your fatherhood journey started different than some, but there are plenty of people that are starting their fatherhood, journey the same way you did, or at least similarly. So you get to go back in time. You hit that 1.21 gigawatts in the DeLorean. I had a great childhood. We get to go back in time to first day you meet Yuri, or let's say, we'll go first day you met Yuri. What advice do you give yourself, knowing the journey you have unfolding? You have to give yourself a piece of advice, because you know it's going to be your kid. Maybe 6 or 7.
Yep.
You go back in time, you get to give yourself a piece of advice. What do you tell yourself?
Take him a bit more seriously and walk with him.
What do you mean by walk with him?
Like really, walk with him. Go down to his level and walk with him. Don't just be like, oh, you're my son now, let's go. Go to his level. That would be the best advice I could give myself.
That's awesome. I can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
Because I want this, grateful on this podcast, those that will share the hard. And you poured your heart and soul out here. And it's amazing, the journey you've been on in all of this. And it's it's just the beginning of something very and everything's been amazing, but I see amazing things on your horizon.
I'm very excited to see where things go from here.
But you're able to share your journey thus far, and I know someone listening needed to hear this. So I can't thank you enough for joining me on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I admit this is probably one of the strangest things I've ever done.
Yes.
As I've expressed,
You're welcome.
I was more the loner kid that kept to himself. Can't say I really would have ever thought, hey, I should get on a podcast. No, I'm not that guy. But this is fun. This has been fun.
Well, that's my catchphrase. Everybody's interesting. You just have to ask the right questions. There is solid gold in everybody. And that's why I asked that new tagline, what's your story? Because I have yet to be bored by anyone's story. If you just take the time to care and listen, you get the solid gold. And man, I learned some stuff. I'll tell you that. And I know people listening will grab stuff out of this, So thank you guys for joining me on episode 3. And I can't wait to get this out to y'all. Please like and subscribe. And let me know what you think in the comments section. How are we doing here? Besides the scuffling noises of the dogs, which I might learn to edit out. I digress.
Just get some foam in the ceiling.
Foam in the ceiling. We're making improvements every time. Elijah, can I get a fist bump?
Of course.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll catch you guys next time.